But, well, and I think, you bring that up as a joke, but this is a question that a lot of people ask, which is, Falun Gong is mounting this essentially big resistance movement. Is it getting, where is it getting its money from?
Yeah, that is a very good question, and we do get that a lot. And I think people have a hard time understanding the answer because it's almost too simple. And the answer is it's a bunch of volunteers. I mean, it's volunteers worldwide. And I think, if you look at most of both Falun Gong, the practice, and Falun Gong, sort of the peaceful civil disobedience movement, in terms of how it operates, really, in both cases, started in China and went outside of China. And if you look inside China, I mean, today, there are literally tens of millions of people who, in the back room of their apartment, are printing out leaflets, and under cover of night they go out and they sort of distribute these leaflets that sort of debunk the lies of the CCP. I mean, this is a massive movement. Not a penny of it comes from some corporate sponsor or anything like that. These are just regular people who feel so strongly about Falun Gong and the injustice done to them that they're going to get up and do this. And imagine what that takes. I mean, I can't think of an organization in the world that could, through money or sort of traditional structures, organize 20 to 40 million people to do that inside China. And I think it sort of speaks to, when they went after Falun Gong, you're going after someone's spiritual practice. I mean, it's one of the things that people most hold dear, and they're obviously going to, have a very strong will to sort of counter that. And I think it's exactly the way we see it outside of China. I mean, it's just massive amounts of volunteers year after year.
Yeah. I mean, I don't actually find that very surprising because having been in Hong Kong in 2019 during the protests, it's like, when we saw 2 million Hong Kongers marching in the streets, we talked to a lot of Hong Kongers, they're not being paid by anyone. It's the repression that costs money. But people going out and holding up a banner, or people, giving an interview to the media, the people in Hong Kong, they were volunteers essentially of just being part of this peaceful resistance movement against the CCP's encroachment on Hong Kong.
And I think a lot of people, the protesters themselves were donating money to make first aid kits, for people who are on the front lines.
I remember them and they'd hand out, people would go to a 7-Eleven and they'd buy a big, 24 pack of water bottles, and they just carry it to the protest. And you never saw the same brand being passed out at different sites because everyone was just doing it randomly. People would make food or package food, and I mean, maybe it was a little sketch, but I totally see how it could be just volunteers who feel that something bad is happening. In this case, the CCP's sort of encroachment on Hong Kong. Little did they know. And they just feel compelled to do something. We met that one guy who flew. He was a chef in Canada who flew to Hong Kong to be part of the protests.
Oh yeah, who flew back to Hong Kong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There were.
I mean, it's like with this thing. I mean, with this magazine we just put out. It started with an email from me to volunteers around the world going and say, hey, we're going to put this together. Gave them sort of a sketch of how many pages. We gave them sort of it's probably going to be about this much per copy. Who wants one? And sort of I get a dozen or so emails from different parts of the world say, okay, we'll probably use 200 here. We'll probably use 500 here. How about we print this? We all pull our money in together, pay for it, print it, and send it out. That's the way we've been running the show for more than 20 years. And it's just that's the way it's been done all around the world.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't seen any, hashtag free Falun Gong campaigns from big corporations. It's not really it's not the cause du jour.
No.
Nothing that brings light to anything bad the Chinese government is doing is going to be the cause du jour.
I mean, you're not going to see BlackRock, Larry Fink stand there with a banner saying,
I don't think we're going to see free Falun Gong, sort of on the NBA court, sort of at half court.
But there was, I mean, with Enes Kanter Freedom, now he's changed his last name to Freedom. He had his thing, and I remember in 2019 there were people who would go to the stands of NBA games.
Yeah.
And they would wear these Hong Kong shirts and hold up banners. And
well, I mean, I think they got banned a few times. It was.
Oh yeah, but
it was considered not okay to do that.
It doesn't hurt them to be banned because that's what brings attention to it.
Yeah.
and kicked out. I mean, there
Yeah.
were definitely people, I think, in Philadelphia, in New York, who were brought in the shirts, and that was sort of, that really kind of hit home, is that when you walk into an American arena with something advocating for democracy and you get kicked out. I mean, clearly that was an indicator to a lot of people something's really wrong.
Yeah, that was happening at tennis matches this year.
Yeah,
like
Wimbledon.
the Australian Open and Wimbledon because of Peng Shuai.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really interesting. Well, I mean, I think one thing about the Falun Gong thing that's also hard to understand, but also impressive to people, is that it has, like, you guys have been able to keep resisting for 20 some years because, you know, you talked about like what the Chinese Communist Party said, that you need to like break up Falun Gong, break up the diaspora, like use cultural institutions, use whatever you can overseas NGOs to target them. I mean, in a lot of ways, this is also how they targeted, for example, the pro-democracy movement overseas. Like after the Tiananmen Square massacre, a lot of people who were the student demonstrators fled overseas. They started trying to kind of have organizations that were promoting democracy in China, but it kind of fizzled out. Like the Chinese Communist Party was able to really successfully target them and kind of break that up and make sure that they were never a force that could actually challenge the party's rule in China. What do you think the difference is with Falun Gong that it's been able to keep going?
As cliche as it sounds, I think it's conviction. I mean, I think it's clear when you look at China in the 90s, right? When Falun Gong first was introduced in 92, it spread so fast. And initially, yes, it spread because of all the health benefits. People were like telling their relatives, look, I mean, chronic things were going away. But pretty soon, or pretty quickly rather, people kind of delved into the fact that, you know, the books and reading them and the principles, and said, oh, this is actually a spiritual tradition. It's a tradition that is closer and more authentically connected to traditional Chinese culture than anything else that was going on in China at that time. And I think it really resonated at a very core place with people. It certainly does with me. I mean, I practice, and everybody that I know, it's something that's very personal. It's something that's been very empowering and life-changing. When you have something like that, and you have sort of a regime like the CCP coming after it, it doesn't surprise me that you're not going to have those people easily disband or have them lose enthusiasm and just go do something else. It sort of becomes very much a part of who we are. And I think that's what really has been driving, is just, and that's what I see in the community. If you look at the Falun Gong community and everybody I work with and the volunteers around the world, it's a very deep conviction that this is a very good practice. We have a right to do it, and there's something very evil coming after us. Now, there is one other component, and that this is something I think the folks in China learned very early on, and then the rest of us caught on to, is that at some point we realized this is not just about us. The CCP and its sort of draconian ways and its ambitions posed a threat to everybody. And you saw this in the persecution of Falun Gong. It was sort of like you either be complicit or participate, or, you know, something horrible happens to you. It was sort of, it took the whole society just down. And we're starting to see that internationally. The more China reaches out and has more influence over businesses and politics and stuff like that. And so there is an extra element to that. There is a very conscious, well, there's an awareness among our community that this is horrific for us, but this isn't just about us anymore, because this is a grave evil that sort of it hangs over the whole world. And I think that's also very much in people's minds. I mean, it's very much part of our conversation. I mean, and it's not just some sort of distant theoretical thing. When we're planning on, you know, what methods used to expose, and what's more important, what's priority-wise, who should we talk to, how do we get the word out? We're thinking about that too, because of, you know. Yeah, again, it's not just about Falun Gong anymore.
Yeah, no, Communist Party is an equal opportunity persecutor.
Yeah, very much so.
That's kind of reminds me of Hong Kong, actually, again, because a lot of the Hong Kong protesters were like sharing that meme that's of the Grim Reaper going to each door, right? And
there was like Falun Gong, like Tibet, Falun Gong, or Hong Kong, Taiwan is like the last one they haven't gotten to yet.
And then, and then
the world.
The world, yeah.
Or whatever it is, yeah.
Yeah, so and a lot of people had that kind of idea that it may be too late for us, but at least we can go down fighting and also warn people. Like if people
You mean
don't,
that the people said to us in Hong Kong?
yeah, like there are a lot of the protesters who kind of knew that this was not going to end well for them. Were kind of like, well, at least we can. If we can't be a warning, then
Yeah, I remember people saying that, and like it just felt so dark to me. But like this is a perfect example of like, first they went after Tibet, but I wasn't Tibetan, so whatever, that German pastor guy said.
And we see this all over the place. I mean, there's like the tiger bench torture technique, for example. Yes, it had pre-existed Falun Gong, but it was really widely used on Falun Gong. And it was part of an arsenal or a little, what they're now unfortunately calling a torture kit, to use to break Falun Gong. And you start literally seeing these techniques after being trained in different labor camps starting to appear in the Uyghur camps and popping up in other groups. So it's, at every level that you look at this persecution, whether it's the detailed torture techniques or these grandiose ways of marshaling all of the missions around the world to go after and silence a group, it's already happening. They're going after other people. And it's not just persecuted minorities. I mean, this is the way they target the American public in some ways. We're now seeing those techniques in censorship and surveillance and stuff like that. I mean, it's already happening. So it's still very much something in our minds.
Yeah, but they're getting better and better at torturing people. They're getting better and better at going after people. It's like you just gotta practice makes perfect. And now start with I'm not entirely clear what the tiger bench is, but like you start with that and then you get, progressively better at torturing people.
But at the same time, what's interesting to see is that these days, particularly in the last year or two, you see just regular Americans that are pretty clear on what the CCP is doing and its ambition. 10 years ago, that was unheard of. The only people that really knew it were like the China watchers and people who weren't, in that sphere that aren't already bought up.
And us screaming into the void on China Uncensored.
Well, it hasn't quite been 10 years yet, but soon.
October will be 10 years for Chris.
And clearly it wasn't just a void because I think it's resonated.
Yeah. I mean, it feels like that sometimes, but, it's
Screaming into the void.
Thank you for watching.